You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Filmmaking Conversations with Damian Swaby.
Today on Filmmaking Conversations, I speak to Lamar McLean and Siobhan Lee. Siobhan is a classically trained actor from London, England, who moved to the United States in 2019 to pursue the artist's career. And then the pandemic happened. Despite the setback, Siobhan turned her improv comedy background into the hilarious Quarantine Court series, which she shot at home during lockdown with partner Lamar McLean. And her many years as a retail buyer and e-commerce strategist have informed her ability as an effective team leader and producer in the entertainment field. In addition to her latest project, Who's Afraid?, Siobhan is developing stories as a writer-actor to take her creative destiny into her own hands. Lamar graduated from Haverford College in 2004 with a degree in English literature. Despite being denied the creative writing concentration at his alma mater, his passion for writing never wavered. Upon graduation, he studied improv and sketch at the Uxbridge Citizens Brigade Theatre and became a regular performer in the UCBW Cage Match show for over a decade. Lamar began producing independent content in 2016, starting with the comedy digital series Breakfast in Bed. In 2017, Lamar pivoted into the horror thriller space with the short film Page One. Since Page One, Lamar has stuck with the horror thriller genre to launch his screenwriting career in earnest. While Lamar remains the producer of the longest-running black improv comedy show in New York City, CPT, Comedy People's Time, he has also several scripts in development, including an anthology horror series that centers on contemporary social issues. Siobhan and Lamar are both incredibly talented, and when I heard about their Seed and Spark campaign, I just had to invite them on the show. Here's the logline to the film they've got in the pipeline. A Karen flees the city after going viral for a racist incident, only to pay the cost of implicit bias when targeted by a homicidal, wolf-worshipping cult. Wow, I've yet to hear something as exciting as that. Siobhan, Lamar, how are you both doing today?
Good, thank you, Damian. How are you?
I'm doing fine, talking to two of New York's finest indie filmmakers, producers, talented people. So what a good day it is for me. And I'm getting to know, hopefully, I'm sure you will enlighten me about a very interesting crowdfunding campaign that is going ahead. And I mean, wow, it's going to provoke an interest and do all sorts of crazy things with people when they find out what this film's about. And I'm so happy that you've met 57% of your goal. Mm-hmm. I know everybody wants to meet their goal, obviously, yeah. But it's just great to see that there's so much interest in this project that you're doing.
Definitely. I think we found that actually, and it hasn't been live for that long. And I think some of the feedback we've gotten, and people have reached out to us outside of the campaign to sort of say that they just feel like it's a very timely and more of an about time kind of a project. Yeah. So yeah, it's been really kind of inspiring and uplifting to just, when you see something that we're so passionate about and that we've put so much into already before we've even put the final product out there, for people to feel excited about it and almost as passionate as we are, it feels like it's a really, it's a great feeling. And certainly it means that we're hoping it's going to be a very well-received piece of work.
Yeah, the most exciting part of it to me, other than being kind of ahead of pace right now with how the crowdfunding campaign is going on Seed and Spark, is that we've already shot the film, so that just brings us that much closer to bringing the production to everyone who's been eager to see it, as opposed to the being earlier in the process, which is, we can already report, has begun as a pretty long road that we're only probably half down when it comes to getting the movie finished. So Yeah, it's just an exciting time, and it feels to echo Siobhan, it feels really good to hear that people are believing in the story and they recognize it as important and worth telling, as opposed to your typical just straight up entertaining horror project.
Oh, before we get on to discussing the project further, I'm fascinated to know, how did you both meet?
We met doing an experimental improv show called Bedtime Stories for Kidnapped Children. The conceit of it was supposed to be dramatic in nature, as opposed to a comedy, which is typically what
exploring
improv is.
Exploring the darker side of improv. We've both been improvising and like improv comedy people for years, and I did it in England and moved over here in 2019 and started doing work at the Pit, which is like, you know, a really well-known big kind of improv company in New York City, and met some people and was approached about this kind of like, it's like exploring the darker, kind of more sinister side of improv, which for both of us is interesting. You know, Lamar being a big horror fan, me being kind of an actor and interested in exploring all sort of facets of humanity, did it. And it was a very like unique experience that we kind of bonded over, but we got to know each other. And, you know, I think mutually liked each other's energy. Like Lamar's a very charismatic person and a very like, he's a brilliant improviser. So it was, you know, a pleasure to work with. And we just got on very well as people and kind of kept a relationship going after that.
Yeah, Siobhan was the highlight of that experience. Even before we got closer after the show was over. It's like several months after it was over, we reconnected. But yeah, like it was, I felt lucky, and like I had made the right decision by agreeing to do the project when I came into the first rehearsal and Siobhan was there. So it was, and it wound up being even more fun than I'd imagined. So
excellent. And you both got a background in theatre. Lamar, I've seen some of your stuff on YouTube.
Oh wow!
Quietly, slightly off topic. I love the NWO t-shirt.
Oh yeah. That's you know, my wrestling fandom goes back to the mid '80s, early '80s. So yeah, I appreciate that you felt like that was too sweet.
I like it. Yes, I like that. Yeah, spot on. So I wonder, you know, when I saw some of the stuff online and I was reading about the project and stuff, was there any temptation to make it into a play?
Oh, I don't think I never thought about it in that setting. I've had ideas for plays before, but I think because I had just come off of producing Page One, a horror short back in 2017, I had kind of pivoted pretty hard to writing for screen and exploring the ways in which we could make that happen was the main focus. But there are times where we'll see stories or we'll watch movies or come up with ideas that we'll say, yeah, that's a play, or we can see like the stage production of this film type of thing. So
yeah, it becomes like an instinctual feeling, at least for me anyway. I have ideas as well for, you know, I've written a couple of scripts that are pilots for comedy shows, but I also have a couple of like plays I've written. And sometimes it's just an idea that like intuitively, instinctively, you just feel like this is something I want to put on stage versus this is a screen project. I think, you know, the two mediums have, you know, kind of a unique quality about storytelling for each one. And I think some stories I think are better told on stage or can be more effectively told on stage. Others can be kind of, you can convey a lot more. And, you know, I think for something like this that has a message that is universal, what's great about doing something on screen and film is your ability to reach more people with it. And I think the message of this movie and how it tackles, you know, some pretty serious issues is best served with as many people seeing it as possible. Yeah. So I think it kind of made sense for this one. It just, yeah, it was never really a conversation. We just kind of originally, it was kind of always meant for for filming.
Also, like genre and horror specifically as a space relies so heavily on pacing and the manipulation of moments and editing and things like that, that the challenge of I mean, I think it's pretty rare to see horror on stage. It's always impressive when it's executed well. But yeah, like I'm more of a film person than a theater person anyway. So to sort of come back home as a fan of film, going back to before I should have been watching the movies that I came up watching. It just felt right to stay in the screen space.
That's fair. That's more than fair, and it's a great decision you made, in my opinion. Because hey, I don't live in New York. I wouldn't be able to see it if it was
right.
Right. Yeah.
I'd have to wait for you guys to come on tour in London. But
we will. I mean,
that's the plan.
Yeah, the good thing is I'm international, so anything I do is always going to be on both sides of the Atlantic, because I'm still grounded in my English roots, you know.
Nice one. And Lamar, in terms of Karens, I mean, there's many examples of Karens that you picture in the Seed and Spark campaign. What moment, or when was the moment when you thought to yourself, enough's enough?
Well, first, I should give all credit to Siobhan for editing the crowdfunding campaign. I'm sure that race relations in the States and how like the heavy baggage of racial injustice in the States differs a bit from how it exists and is discussed in the UK. But so it was interesting to see a fresh pair of eyes take in just how real and how heavy and how fraught things are here. I think that if not for that fresh reaction, I don't know that the impact of the Karen phenomenon as super dangerous would have necessarily resonated so much or presented as something that needs to be talked about. Because when you're here and you've grown up in America, especially as a Black American, in order to just get through the day, you kind of just anesthetize yourself in some ways to how many different occasions we get hit and bombarded with the trauma that we experience. But I think it was more like a cumulative thing in the same way that the crowdfunding video depicts. It's just this incident after incident after incident. And I think the summer of 2020, like that racial reckoning that started here and kind of sent shockwaves around the world, was probably the tipping point for me in terms of using my passion for storytelling. Please pardon the fire engine.
It's New York City, having it all the time.
You can imagine, yeah.
But the wow.
I mean, literally, it's the backdrop of New York.
Nice. Real, I like it.
I know, I've gotten very used to it. At first, I was like, what is happening all the time here?
If I'm honest, it wasn't a particular, like, in air quotes, Karen incident that pushed me over the edge as much as the summer of 2020 forcing me to really use my passion for storytelling for good, like as a superpower in a way, as my contribution to bringing about change. Because I'm not built for the marches. Like I'm not. That's not a kind of danger I want to put myself in. And Siobhan and I have talked about how everyone should assume whatever role they feel most comfortable with in the journey toward a better world. And the path that I've chosen is storytelling. And the reason why Karen is at the forefront of this is that, to me, the white female archetype in general is probably like a more palatable and a more attractive point of access for an audience, as opposed to, say, like a neoconservative alt-right Richard Spencer type, which is already either going to alienate people or present as someone who really lacks dimension in the way that.
And it's also that, the smart thing as well is you take someone who's very extreme and therefore very dissimilar to most people. Well, that's not me. Like I can observe this story, but it's not for me to learn from, because I would never do that. I would never be committing these atrocities. And I think having something where, we've seen a lot of these examples of like these Karen people, and what they're doing, which is very intentional at the time, and probably prior to getting caught or seeing that, like if you'd ask them, are you a good person? Are you they would think, yes, of course. And people around them wouldn't see it. And I think suddenly you're like somebody who is very normal, who might be your neighbor, might be your mother, might be your aunt, might be your teacher, might be yourself. It's a way of conveying a story that is more relatable and maybe makes you ask the question of yourself of like, I'm not out there committing like obvious hate crimes or inciting, racial like hatred, but maybe because of the way I speak to this person, or the way I view this person, or the way I favor this person or this situation, that's kind of damaging as well. And maybe actually, and that's what I thought was so clever about the story. It's like, we often hear a lot about, implicit unconscious biases, and, what does that really mean? Like, to us. And it's like, well, actually, and I think the strongest sense I got from the script was these unconscious biases that have been built into us, like as we've grown up, and a lot of us aren't even aware of them. Like, they are not only harmful and damaging to the people that they're directed at, but there's a self-destructive element. It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't, not to sound too, righteous or try, but just, the world is like, it doesn't contribute to making a better world. It just hurts everybody, and it keeps everyone back, and it stops us from joy. Yeah. And that's everybody. And I think, like I said, getting up on a soapbox and, yelling at people, or, trying to expect them to see themselves in these very extreme figures isn't maybe as communicating in the same way or relatable as actually just like, let's ask ourselves like, about looking into our own everyday lives and actions, and like maybe seeing that there's stuff we can look at and change and we could do for the better. So I think using a Karen, particularly as it's a very like well-known kind of image of, and just as soon as you say Karen, you conjure up that type of who that person is. It's very visceral. It's a smart way of being like, but it's also accessible, right? Yeah. So it's like, it's an interesting kind of character to kind of work with. Yeah. So I think that was kind of like a really interesting way to start as a starting point for the story about where we begin and how it all kind of jumps off.
So Siobhan, how do you feel about playing this character, and what type of preparation are you going to do as an actor for the role?
So, I mean, how do I feel about the character? I mean, we had this conversation because it's like, you as a human being, this is somebody that I find deplorable in many ways, and those kind of actions, and I can't imagine a world of me ever doing something like that. But my job as an actor and kind of an artist is not to judge the character. In life it's so easy, to make a judgment about this person's bad, this person's wrong, but you can't really do that as an actor. You have to look at them as a human being and what their experiences may or may not have been, and how did they come by this, and what was their intention, because you can't play someone who's a villain as like in a two-dimensional way. You think of some of the most terrible people in the world, if you ask them, they don't think that they're terrible. They can justify every single thing they do, and they will. Now, that might not be in line with what my perspective is, but we're all just living from our own point of view, right, in the world. So for me, like the preparation, like firstly, for me, this story was an important one to tell. And it was important for me to not have this character painted as a very, like, it would have been very easy to play up her as a two-dimensional, like I don't know if I can swear, but let's say bitch. I have a potty mouth, I have to watch that. But no, it would have been easy to do that. But the thing is like, that doesn't help serve the story. And for me, it's about creating someone that, you know, someone watching can see themselves or their colleague or someone that they know in. And that to me is more like, there's subtleties that come through in this script that are so clever and smart that like the first watch you may miss things, then you go back and you watch things. But yeah, for me it was to really kind of firstly understand who this character is and what's led her to the point to make the decisions that she has made. And as the story unfolds, you see there's a lot more complexities about her own character, personality, who she is, who she's pretending to be in the world, that maybe there's something kind of tragic and sad going on for herself. And, you know, does she even realize that these things that are kind of unconscious biases are going on in her head are leading her down a path of like her own sort of destruction, if you will? And is she able to get over the BS in time to, like, at the very least, save herself? And I think, you know, I look very much at the character. I look at the relationships between the character and other characters. And, you know, I try and make it as grounded and as real as possible from that character's point of view, rather than any label or judgment or outside perspective that, you know, you might want to apply to someone like her.
And the amazing thing about that is it's so real and so true from you when you do apply that type of thinking for a character. And I can't wait to see this film and see how you've done that, and the whole objectives that came out of deciding to make those decisions that you did. But the film itself is finished, you mentioned earlier. Why did you take the decision to finish the film the film, basically, and then do crowdfunding?
Well, we have a shared history most recently of doing the day job thing, working in corporate spaces in order to finance not just our lives, but our creative pursuits. And both of us had been, you know, just squirreling money away, saving money however we could. And actually, for my part, I benefited from a huge amount of overtime hours that from the summer of 2020 through the summer of 2021. No, for the previous year.
Okay.
And so my savings looked like the kind that I could use to finance at least principal photography on the project. And we got tired of waiting. You know, the process of submitting your scripts to fellowships and competitions and all that. Like, I had done that with other projects, and, you know, I think I made it to the second round of Austin once, and that was like for a feature, and it was a nice marker just to let me know what how like where my writing was, you know, like how my process was serving me. But I didn't want to wait and ask permission for something that I could do myself, or that we could do. The standard that we set by financing principal photography was very high. We cast and crewed it all ourselves. And as creative people who know the value of people's time and work, we did our very best to make everyone whole on the front end. And knowing that we, you know, have have great footage to work with, a good filmmaker friend, Don P. Hooper, he reminded us that people want to help when it comes to filmmaking. People will become excited about your ideas, and I think that helped inspire us to see like whether we could get people on board. And we felt confident that we could get people on board in the sense that it wasn't just an abstract, this is what we want to do. Instead, it's here's what we've done. Do you want to come along the ride with us and be a part of it?
Yeah. And we wanted to bet on ourselves and our career. And I think, you know, Lamar had been working and written the script and gotten to a point where it was, you know, a really solid form. And we did some table reads, and we were like, everyone was like, yeah, this is great. Like, you've got to make it. And we just I don't know, there was just like, we were like, yeah, we've got to make it. You know, we both kind of played the industry game as you do in a traditional sense. And we've made projects, like we did some stuff over the lockdown period and did some comedy stuff and filmed and did that. But we were like, you know what, like we need to put our money where our mouth is, and we needed like, let's just make this, because it's like, it's a great script, it's a great story. We already knew the location we wanted to use.
That helped.
Yeah, which also helped because of the seasonality of the movie as well. We knew kind of what time of year. Like we had to time it very specifically because we wanted the snow on the ground and we wanted that effect, because in the Adirondacks it's beyond gorgeous and it's majestical when you're up there, but a little bit too long and it's just too cold to work in. I mean, it was already borderline that when we were working there. But so there was that, and I think we started planning it, and we really, you know, what I've certainly learned about me over the last couple of years, but I think as Lamar and I as a dynamic, is we really are very impassioned storytellers, in the sense of like, for us, storytelling is like something that is just drives us. And we've just, whether that's we're watching movies or TV shows and we spend hours then dissecting it like nerds, but like we really want to be storytellers. And, you know, we were talking about it, and as I have a business background and that can very much directly relate to producing, and obviously both of us being in this kind of sector in the arts, we wanted to do it. And we have a very, like, I would say very good taste level, and we have a very strong kind of, for us, like standards and vision of what we want. And I think it started with our cinematographer. Yeah. And we saw his work. It's Lucas Miller.
Yeah, Lucas Miller.
And he's phenomenal and just so talented. And we have this great script. Then we got this great cinematographer on board. Then we found like these great actors, these great crew. And when you meet people and find people that are that talented, it's like, you can't imagine working with anyone else.
Yeah.
So it became something, to Lamar's point, where it was like, we just wanted to go for it. It was kind of like, we need to just do this. We need to make it. We need to kind of go out there, bet on ourselves and tell this story. And this story deserves more than just, you know, again, like submitting to a festival as a script in hopes that. Yeah. So we were like, no, we'll start carving out our future and our career path and what we want to do. So we put our money where our mouths are. We have this amazing experience. What we've seen so far from the production is incredible. And like, we need to now keep that standard. It would be a disservice to the story, to all the work we put in so far, to now let it down because we've had to like skimp on sound or skimp on music. And you think of all the elements that go into a film. I mean, like, let's just take the musical score, for example. Music can elevate an experience of a movie to just another level. And, you know, it's funny, I've seen things on YouTube where they've changed the music or something, or like there's this classic one with Jurassic Park, and, you know, you see Sam Neill and Laura Dern. Yeah, and they arrive, and, you know, you've got Attenborough saying, "Welcome to Jurassic Park," and you see these amazing creatures coming by, and they replace that music with this crazy harmonica music, and it just kills it, and it's hilarious. And you go from, I remember when I first saw that scene in Jurassic Park, like, you know, they took me, and like goosebumps are on my arm. And if you look at this YouTube clip, somebody's put a harmonica or something against it, and it's just like badly played. So you just hear, and it totally ruins it. And that was like, I saw that years ago, and it really drove into me the importance of like music to take and keep you on that journey with the visuals, with the dialogue. So like, just taking that for example, it's like it's also important to get people, and then, you know, so to do that justice, that's where we were like, and, you know, as Lamar said, Don, who is very experienced in filmmaking, was like, people want to help, people want to be part of it, people will feel connected and inspired by the stories you tell. So don't feel like you have to do everything off your backs, you know.
So when go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so it's been like, you know, proof is in the pudding, because it's been, you know, so far, like, you know, we've done amazingly, and we're so happy, and we're like, every day we're like, oh my God, like, So that's where we are with it, I guess.
So with the budget that you had, how many crew members were involved with the film?
There were, I believe, in total 10 people. There was myself, Lucas.
Yeah, there's about 16,
Robin,
including the cast.
Justin, Jesse,
Yeah.
Aaron, Brian, Carly, Lindsay, and Florian. So 11 of us, but 10 of us. Yeah, 10.
Brilliant. That's really good. So,
10.
a really nice experience for sure in that way. If you've got a kind of that number of crew.
It was intimate. Like we lived together during the shoot. Like it was all on location. We bought out access to an entire inn, and it had a winter retreat / camp kind of atmosphere. You know, all the meals were shared. Or communal, whatever, however you want to phrase that. And
we'd come in at 4 a.m. after being outside freezing our butts off for hours, and all sit around the fireplace with a beer and just
nice.
we being so remote from everything, we created our own COVID bubble.
Oh yeah.
On the,
Yeah, because we obviously everything had to be through compliance, and the New York state laws are pretty strict on that. Well, they were at the time, so everyone was tested, and then in this place up in upstate New York, it's this time of year it's dead. There's no one there. So it was kind of really nice because we were all isolated and we were just kind of working together all day, every day, and then just chilling all day, every day. So it was like we were like in a little bubble for a week.
So where exactly in New York was it filmed?
So the Adirondacks is a pretty vast stretch of land in upstate New York. Keene Valley is the town where we shot most of the film. We did some pickups in New Jersey.
It's right by, you might know more Lake Placid,
yeah.
The film Lake Placid with Betty White. So it's kind of just outside of there, about the giant alligator. It's absolutely stunning. Like it's one of the most beautiful places I've seen. Like it's just something magical about it, and it's a very small town, and they get very busy obviously during peak seasons, but then it's very quiet the rest of the time of the year, and it's just gorgeous. It's mountainous, it's so beautiful. The people there are the nicest, loveliest, warmest people. Newmark Diner has the best pies I've ever had in my life. They're amazing. It's just stunning, and it's it's another character in the story. It just adds like an unbelievable backdrop to tell this story. And like I said, we were so fortunate because everyone that we kind of came into interaction with in the town, they were just so kind and so lovely and so excited, and some of them jumped at the chance to kind of be extras in it, and they just wanted to be part of it. And it was it's an absolutely gorgeous place and lovely people, and we're just so fortunate we were able to film around there.
The Valley Grocery was gracious enough to allow us to use their space as a location as well for the shop scene in the first act of the film. And everyone was enthusiastic about the project, interested, and helpful, and wished us well in every way that they possibly could. Just for a sense of vastness of just the state of New York, I don't know how many of your listeners are English, but where we shot is 4.5 hours north by car from New York City.
Okay.
And there's still plenty.
It's still not the top.
There's still plenty of New York left to go due north. So we were up so far that I drove another hour north to a Staples to get toner for the printer because I had to do some rewrites. And most of the license plates that far up were from Quebec. So
okay.
But we were still in the States at the time. So it's New York is a big, weird shaped state.
America in general, some of the landscape it still blows my mind to this day. Like it's just a beautiful country. Like it's unreal. And to have that all on your doorstep. You know, I've always felt very fortunate anyway, you know, living in London, you've got Europe on your doorstep. England's got some beautiful areas, and then just a stone throw over in Europe, you can see anything. But it's the same thing in America, the vastness. I still can't get my head around the size of this country. It's like blows my mind. I remember I met a couple people in an acting class when I first moved here, and they were both from Texas. And I was like, oh, you're both from the same place. And they're like, yeah, we're like 800 miles away from each other. And I was like, wait, that's like from the bottom of England to like the top of Scotland. I was like, whoa. And that's just two cities. So.
It just blows my mind as well. I can't get my head around it. It's like I literally come back from Oxford today. You said, it's beautiful parts of England and London, of England, sorry, I shouldn't say London. But it's still, in comparison to America, it's like when some people drive from New York to Texas, and you just think, how do you do that?
How the hell do you? I don't have a week to spare.
Yeah, right.
But some people brush it off, you know. So I just had to drive, you know, and I'm like,
yeah, I know, they're used to it, and I'm just like, I find out we have to drive somewhere for 4 or 5, 6 hours, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't. Like, how am I going to cope? Can we just get a flight? I literally, there's some things where I could fly from England to America in a quicker time than just driving from the bottom of the state to the top of the state.
Yeah, it's crazy in that way.
Yeah, it's wild.
I myself, as a former actor, I've lived with actors on tour, when you kind of, the whole cast live together. I've never lived with crew members as well, and I've never done it for a film, being in a film or directing or whatever in regards to film. What would you say is the pros and cons of cast and crew living together over the time period to make a film?
Well, I should admit that we benefited from the contacts, quite a few contacts from Lucas Miller, the cinematographer of the film. He helped us a lot by giving us a short list of crew members that would help him execute the vision that we had, discussed. So, and Lucas Miller is a wonderful person, kind, thoughtful, intelligent, sensitive, and which is all to say, he doesn't work with people who are, egocentric or difficult in any way. So we kind of had that as an advantage going in, that mitigated any concerns about personalities necessarily. So that was kind of our baseline, which was nice. I would say that the advantage of all of us sharing space is that it was interesting, because with the two of us as kind of as the producers, there's a certain dynamic that comes together, where it's like there's the people who are doing the job, and then there's the people who are in charge. And you can't help but have it be like, well, for the crew being like, well, it's kind of us and them, not us versus them, but it's us and then there's them. In order to be in such close quarters, like, we kind of leveled that playing field by just being with each other and related to each other. And so we had no choice but to continue to just see each other as people, believe in the project, and constantly be reminded that we were all on the same team trying to accomplish the same goal.
Yeah, and I think, like, Lamar and I from the very beginning set out for us, it's very important, this idea of community. And like, Lamar and I are very ambitious, and we have things that we want to achieve in our career. And for us, we're very much about like bringing our people up with us and like coming up together. And it's, connections and who and supporting each other. That's the thing that's the recipe to success. It's like, and when you find those people that you can work with and that also support you support them, that's priceless. And I think for us, building a community that was supportive, and that I know that we have from this, where like, when Jesse releases his movie, he was one of the crew, he's also a film director, we're all going to root for him on that, and we're going to show up. And that, I think, is, a secret to success. And I think we love people, and we wanted to be around people that, for us, were like-minded. So we wanted to make sure that we had the most talented, but also like, you know, good people. We weren't looking to bring in anybody that might be an a-hole. But you know, but also I think what was really nice about the experience of us all being together, like we made sure, because, you know, coming up in this industry, like we know for well, like sometimes we have to like stay in really not nice accommodation, and we're like not always paid, and we didn't want to do that. So for us, it was very important to look after our team. So the place we were staying was gorgeous. First of all, like you go in there straight away. It's the Rooster Comb Inn in Keene Valley. It's gorgeous. And literally Terry, who was running the show that week, was like looked after us and was so sweet. But I think also what was nice is that everyone has come away from that week and came to us separately and was like, there was something very special about this project. Like I've never connected with a crew in this way, or like, I know I've got friends for life now. I know I've got people I'll work with again. And they came to us separately, a lot of them, and kind of almost thanked us for the experience, because they were like, there was just something special that happened that week. And I think some of that comes from the fact that we went through this journey together, but we're all very different people from different backgrounds. And I mean, like, there were moments that, like, for me, like, say, Dancing Elk. So Marshall, or Elk as everyone called him, who was one of our actors for Ringo, you know, he is indigenous, like from the indigenous people. He's Native American, and he brought out the pipes and started playing, and it was gorgeous and lovely, and we all sat around and listened. And then like Robin Deep was like ready to learn, and like, you know, it was just like just all coming in with like
it's like you know, an American Indian and a like East Indian in an exchange of cultures that was really sweet.
It was amazing,
you know. But there were moments like that among all of us, and we really lived our lyrics, so to speak, in the vision of what the film was, by just being together and celebrating our individual differences and lifting each other up that way. In my compulsion to be like fulfill the assignment and answer the question fully, I, for the life of me, can't really think of a drawback to the experience as we created it and experienced it.
Yeah, I was trying.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad I wasn't fishing and like, I hope they've got one to say. It was a fight, and
give me the dirt. Give me the dirt.
I just, as you know, everyone listening is gonna be a filmmaker or is a filmmaker, and there are so many things to consider when I put questions out like that, because I'm thinking to myself, and I'm looking at the beautiful location, Keene Valley, with Lamar outside of the house. I'm looking at it now, everyone, the inn, sorry, on my other computer. And I'm inspired to tell a story in a location like that.
Exactly.
And this picture, along with the Seed and Spark campaign, will go in the show notes. And when anyone else looks at that picture and hears this, I'm sure they're going to be inspired. I know that. And I love these type of things. And I'm just fascinated that you could actually be with so many people in this beautiful inn and create the story you want, that you two have put the money into, and it's worked the way you want. And these are the type of stories I love to hear. So I'm happy for you from the bottom of my heart, because I know these things are not easy, and I just want to be in this inn. I'm looking at this. I just want to eat in there and chill out and have a good time and maybe make a film. But
yeah, I just want to, just for the filmmakers who listen to this show, one thing that I would say is to just always listen and take note of certain tips and things. Like there's another show that I listened to called The Screenwriters Rant Room. Hilliard Guess is the host of that show, and he's a producer and screenwriter as well. I think Deadly Class was a series that he worked on, and I listened to his show quite a bit. And one of the little, he said it, like, there are some little things that you can do when budget is limited to make a lower budget a film seem like a top tier experience. And one of the things that we did was before the crew arrived to set, and in the cast actually, we asked them what their favorite snacks were.
Yeah.
Just like what little creature comforts would make their day better at the end of it, beginning, throughout, whatever. And it meant one more run to the shops before we started shooting, but it's little things like that that remind each and every individual that they're valued, and that even when we're in the rush of just getting things done, we all see each other, and I wouldn't have known or thought to do that if not for listening to other filmmakers who've been through the experience and have dealt with circumstances where their resources, though limited, didn't stop them from being good to one another. Yes. So, yeah.
No, great. And I understand that completely. When I first started making short films, I'd like to put things out like strawberries and Jaffa cakes and things that are just nice when they come in. I'm sure you have Jaffa cakes in America. I don't know if it's called the same thing, Siobhan, or
no, they have something similar. It's not called the same.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but they're very nice.
I'm gonna have to put those pig candies on my.
I introduced him to Percy Pigs.
Oh, they don't have that. I thought it was American, no?
No, because it's Marks and Spencer's.
Oh, of course.
So we went over there and he tried them for the first time, and I bought back 4 packets of them and they're gone. And he's like, literally like, I get some of those piggy candies.
if we ever do an event where we're like, guest on an in conversation or something, and there's a possibility of getting something in the green room, it's gonna be those pigs.
I mean, Lamar's just gonna drop Marks and Spencer's Percy Pigs on every interview he does, so he can get a lifetime supply, because he's obsessed now.
I don't blame him. I love him. I love him too. But lastly, before we go, you've mentioned about your careers and you're obviously ambitious. You've also, as I said earlier, and as you've told me, you've backed this and you've now put up a Seed and Spark campaign that's at 57% of its goal. What do you hope this film will do for your careers?
How about you?
Oh, no, for me. Well, obviously, as an actor, you want exposure. You need to be in the mix, and that's in terms of going through the traditional route of like, waiting for my agent to send me auditions and kind of playing that lottery game, which actually, interestingly enough, casting for this film gave me a very interesting perspective of that job from the other side, because some of the decisions, I mean, like the cast that we've got are incredible, but some of those decisions were tough because we auditioned some incredible actors and like totally loved them. And actually ended up being like, okay, well, if not for this, we're going to write something for this person one day because it's so good. So it was interesting as an actor because it was like, yeah, you know what? Sometimes when you don't book a job, it's no commentary on your talent. It's just, there's that little, what is it? Je ne sais quoi, little something that like, you can't really put your finger on. It's just a vibe. I don't know. So sometimes it's been interesting for that, but obviously, for me, wanting to raise my profile as an actor, I can do that through various ways, and making my own stuff is great for that. I'm very also keen and interested in, I worked in business for a number of years before I went into acting. I kind of loved acting as a kid, but kind of it was seen as,
I know.
a hobby, not a real career.
I know.
So I kind of went down a more conventional route. Did that for a long time, and it's still like, a lot of times it's my bread and butter that I have that allows me to make something like this and allows me to afford to buy classes and headshots and all those things. So I'm glad for the experience. I'm glad that I have those years of business in my life, because they've also made me a better actor. I can read a contract, I can do all kinds of things, but it's also the job I did as a retail buyer is very similar, and a lot of similar skills to being a producer. And for me, I enjoy the producing work. It's something I really love doing. So I would love to make more stories, and whether I'm in them or not, just stories I'm passionate about, stories I think need to be out there that, again, with this story, what I love about Who's Afraid is you have the entertainment in there that you expect from seeing a film. It's super entertaining. If you're into horror, if you're into thriller, if you're into just, just going into escapism into a world, it's great. what is great about it is it also deals with a very like relevant, important topic, which is kind of looking at this kind of insidious unconscious biases that transcend all things, whether it's race, whether it's views people have over people's sexuality, gender, you can take that message and apply it to a lot of facets of life, but it does it in a way that is not preachy. It's not talking down to anyone. It's observational. It's not judgmental. And it's just something that people will hopefully look at and think. And is it necessarily a story or a narrative that would be told from that perspective if it was mainstream and done by big industry and big production companies and movie makers? I don't know. We talk about all the times, a lot of stories that are put out there about groups that are discriminated against or marginalized aren't usually written or told or produced by the people that they're about. And it's kind of a very one-sided take on like that controlling that. So I think there's a lot of stories that need to be told and shared and have a right to have airspace, and that an audience have a right to see and have access to. And I would love to be able to get to a position where like I'm producing that kind of work. So I'm hoping that this movie, for me, the long answer to your question is, will obviously help me as an actor, and contribute to like exposure for me. And obviously developing my craft, just working on something like this was very challenging. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. It was physically demanding, being outside in sub-zero temperatures till 4 a.m. in pajamas, in the freezing snow, or whether it was kind of having fight scenes with William Morrissey, who is a 6'10", WWE Impact wrestler.
Wow, really?
Yeah. So Will, he's fantastic in it. Whether it was, there was a lot, being covered in blood and like running around and having to live effectively in a week in a state of panic, and what that did to my like nervous system of constantly having to be in that place of. So it was very physically demanding. And to convey it, like I said, of course, I'm going to have judgments about the person and the character of Whitney. But again, it's that thing of like, as an actor, my job is to put my personal judgment on this character aside and find the human being. So again, it, helps me from a craft perspective, hopefully getting it out there in as many eyes as possible. It helps my visibility in the industry, and it'll give me the opportunity to do more interesting independent films. And also to produce stuff that needs to be out there.
Nice. I like it. I love it. Needs to be out there.
As I had this plan, I called it Out of Pharma by 40. Pharma being the like pharmaceutical advertising agency where I make my money by the day. And this film, Who's Afraid, is the biggest step that I've ever made toward that goal. And that's the short version of the goal. I've got a year to see whether that comes true. But in the longer term, Who's Afraid is essentially also operates as a proof of concept for a larger series.
Oh.
It's an anthology series where each story focuses on a person who's committed some sort of, social transgression, and they have to reckon with the consequences of that act. And it'll cover many different topical issues of the day that resonate with us, or that resonate with to the effect of like people need to see these stories. And being on that track, just I told someone the other day that I want to have the legacy of Rod Serling with the power of Ryan Murphy.
Okay.
That's Charlie Brooker is another inspiration from Black Mirror for that kind of thing. But yeah, I want to be able to tell these stories, connect with other great storytellers, and just be established as an invaluable voice to the landscape where stories are a catalyst for change. That's the that's the big creative goal. And the other nice one that we've kind of been experiencing is like having the opportunity to work with actors that I've revered growing up and as a fan of film and actors, and being able to come up with stories or work with them on stories that they don't normally get to get to be a part of. Being in conventions and things like that have helped us connect with actors that have been like amazing. I met the lead actresses of Night of the Comet last weekend, and got to talk to them, and got to talk to a lot of legends from the horror genre in general, and just say like, what kind of thing do you want to do? And then just like to make a note of it and go like, okay, good to know. And it's inspiring, you know, not just the stories themselves, but also just to be able to work with amazing actors who, for reasons only the industry really controls, haven't been able to create. Like, I love working with actors in the context of creating, you know, and Siobhan as an actor informed a lot of the dimension that Whitney King wound up having, even after we had kind of had the script in a pretty baked position, ready to shoot. There were certain details where it was like, all right, well, how can we make her more, how can we give her more dimension and make her truer to like a real person in a way that in this genre, you don't typically have to, but how will we enhance the experience by sort of coming around to at least maybe not liking Whitney, but at least seeing her in all of her facets. And that's the kind of dimension that I want to bring to every story. And I think
that's interesting, because I think what Lamar's done and written is he's really written real people. I feel like, you know, you've got Whitney, who's the main character, who's this city girl who, like, you know she exists. And when you get to this town in this Denwood town, these are all like not stereotypical small town people. They're real people. And again, it's always kind of painted a little bit like in these things. Sometimes you see like this, it's, you know, small town people who are like no one's hands are clean in this, right? So it's just like, but like, they're all very normal people that you feel like you could meet and know, and they all come by their own stuff honestly. And I think like that is what Lamar's amazing at doing, is writing real people. He doesn't write, like, all of Lamar's characters are thought out real human beings, and he writes for actors.
Nary a mustache shall twirl for anything that I write.
Like, they're interesting people, and everything's come by honestly. And I think, you know, you'll see that in this film. You'll see that, you know, again, Lamar's got numerous episodes planned for the anthology series that is linked to Who's Afraid, that you'll see the same thing as, again, you know, what the catalyst of what started with this story, the other character involved, he has a whole history and past and story dedicated to him. So it's really interesting. And I think this is the beginning of something that could be really very like big and successful. And we'd love to get this effectively sold in to a network so that we can make the rest of the anthology and tell these stories. And again, tell these stories that make people think and form part of, like, you know, the same, you know, it's one thing I always want to like feel like I have to stress sometimes to people. And it's just like, you know, people don't always, I think filmmakers appreciate the power of the medium that we're in. And sometimes I don't always think that people outside the filmmaking industry realize what power that is.
True.
And so much of the, you know, for the most part, we walk around on this planet and we just have experiences from our own point of view. You know, we can only have information based on what we've come across in our lives. And these stories and these movies can serve to fill in gaps and give you an experience of people, places, and things that you wouldn't necessarily find if you're, you know, even in New York City. But like, if you're in a small town in the middle of nowhere and you're not getting exposure to the rest of the world, like, so many of these unconscious biases that we've talked about before a lot of them are reinforced by what we've seen on TV for years.
Completely.
We think about the things we've seen over decades of certain people being portrayed in certain ways. It feeds into the narrative so that you then take that out into your real life and you're attributing certain characteristics to certain types of people because that's what you've seen on TV.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, we want to do the kind of work that is just as powerful and counter to some of these things that have been, quite frankly, harmful.
I completely understand. I really do. I take my hat off to you. If I was wearing one, I would take my
Take my invisible.
and literally thank you so much, because your indie film spirit just burst through the screen, and I love that. I love the fact that both of you are so on it and doing great work, and I just can't wait to see this film. I really can't. I'm looking forward to it. But thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate both of you taking the time and sharing your journey with me and allowing me to see your Seed and Spark campaign. That again will be in the show notes, and everybody go and do what you can do. There's so many different options. $200 Silver Flag, $300 Golden Fang, $500 Call of the Wild. There's a lot there, so check it all out. Do what you can. Share the Seed and Spark campaign. That would be great. That everyone can do that, and we look forward to this film. So thank you both so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us. It's such a pleasure.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Have you thought of upgrading your cinematography game? Would you like to have an ASC cinematographer mentor you for free? Join veteran cinematographer Suki Medenzovic, ASC, Disney, Pixar, FX Networks, Netflix, American Horror Story. As he teaches you how to create beautiful images using 3 lighting techniques he has mastered on film sets over his 30-plus years in the film industry. Each technique uses basic, low-cost lighting equipment so that anyone can achieve beautiful visuals no matter your project's budget. If you want to take your cinematography to the next level, visit filmmakingconversations.com to sign up for instant access.